Hello, my name is Emily Traster, and I am here today with Dan Dalton, one of the founding partners of Dalton and Tomich. Dan has helped a number of churches leave the United Methodist denomination and keep their property. How are you doing today, Dan?
I am doing great, Emily. It's so good to see you. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. So, Dan, I understand that Section 2553 will expire December 31st of 2023. What does that mean for local churches and their timeline for making a decision to disaffiliate?
Emily, that's a great question because time is ticking away on the process to disaffiliate. As you may know, in 2019 at the specially called General Conference, at the very end of that conference, there was two proposals that were presented with respect to disaffiliation within the Book of Discipline. And this was within the last 15, 20 minutes of that conference before the monster trucks were going to show up in the St. Louis Edward Jones Arena. The first proposal was presented by more of the conservative side, and that proposal did not pass. The second proposal is the tailored disaffiliation plan, and that's 2553, and that provided a pathway for churches who wanted to leave, but they had to provide a statement in there that they disagreed with the Book of Discipline. And subsequent to that, the Judicial Council has ruled that it's just the good faith of the local church in making their statements, because they could get out using 2553, but whether they actually followed what was set forth in that statement was left to their own discretion. So with that, there's been a number of churches that have since disaffiliated, and that's occurred primarily in 2021 and most recently in 2022, because bishops didn't recognize the authority of Section 2553 after it was first passed. It took the Judicial Council to have a ruling that said that 2553 went into place after it passed, but that was almost a year and a half later. So now we're about a year and 2 months from it expiring, and it expires on its own terms. What that means is local churches really need to get on the stick and need to start working on this now to get out. Most of the general conferences in the United States have their annual conferences in June of the year. So probably I want to go say about 75 to 85% of all annual conferences in 2023 will only be in June of 2023. At that point in time, that will be the last time that you'll have an opportunity as a local church to leave using 2553. Even though it expires by December of 2023, most conferences will not. They will not have a specially called conference next fall. Now, that is as of October of 2022, I'm saying this. It could all change, but what we're seeing right now is most conferences are having a specially called conference this fall. They'll have a conference, the annual conference in the spring, and there's no guarantee there will be one next fall of 2023. So from a timeline perspective, if you work backwards from June, you have to go through typically a discernment process with your district superintendent within your conference. You have to agree to a disaffiliation agreement. You have to do your legal work, your governing papers, and have that all done, which is your title work, your articles of incorporation, all the underlying work that needs to be done as well. You have to educate your congregation and have the church vote. You have to work with your staff to make sure that they're on board, and if they're not, to find new staff. So there's a lot that goes into it between the time you decide to disaffiliate and the annual conference vote to disaffiliate. So you have 8 months right now to do it. I would strongly urge anyone who's watching this to, if you're at least thinking about it, to at least start the process, because the worst thing you could do is end up losing time. And we've seen that happen last year, where there was a number of churches that contacted us in April and May of 2022 of this year to get out, and they just couldn't get out because they lost time. There wasn't enough time to do it. So now is the time. Have your leadership team get on the stick, talk to your pastor, start getting through that process, work with us or another professional to help guide you through that process. It's so important to know nobody's going to do this for you. This is something you have to do on your own. Each church has to do it on its own. So now's the time to do it. October of 2022, start the process so you can be done and get out the door for certain in June of 2023. This is, just so you all know, this is not an unfamiliar situation. This is exactly what happened in the Episcopal Church when they enacted the Dennis Canon, which is their trust clause, and then the Presbyterian Church USA, when they had like a 7-year grace period. And in both of those situations, both the Episcopal Church and the Presbyterian Church USA they promised their clergy and they promised the laity that if they stayed with them, nothing would change. They did what is being said right now. The Articles of Incorporation, the Articles of Religion will not change. And once those periods ended for both the Episcopal Church and the Presbyterian Church USA, within months, they changed their Articles of Religion and their structure, and they closed the door on a pathway out. So the only way out after that was litigation, which occurred quite frequently and throughout the United States. So if you want to avoid that litigation problem and you want to avoid issues in the future, and you want a clear path out right now, and it may not be what you want to pay, but it'll be a lot cheaper than litigation, a lot less risky and uncertain. Do it now. Take that time period now, and understand that 2553 will end, and that will be the last time. It will not reopen again. There will not be a separation protocol passed in 2024. December 23 will be the end time for you to leave under the current discipline.
Thank you for your insight, Dan. If your church is looking to leave the United Methodist Church and you're interested in hiring Dan to help you through the process, please reach out to our office at 313-859-6000 or email us today. Thank you.